Jungkook cried in the hallway after hearing what Jimin said behind his back, broken heart face screaming in fear. The sound of Jimin's voice cut through the dim backstage corridor like a blade. I don't know how much longer I can do this. Especially with Jungkook. Jungkook froze mid-step. The hallway lights flickered above him, buzzing faintly, casting long shadows across the polished floor. His chest tightened, breath snagged somewhere between disbelief and a kind of quiet, numbing horror. He hadn't meant to overhear. He was just heading back to grab his earpiece. But the cracked door of the practice room, slightly ajar, changed everything. Inside, Jimin's voice trembled. It's like, he doesn't even see what he's doing to me. Jungkook felt something sharp twist deep inside his ribs. The words weren't shouted, they weren't angry. They were whispered in a way that sounded tired, worn, maybe even hurt. And that made it worse. Pure anger he could handle. This sounded like resignation. He backed up a step. His elbow hit the cold metal handrail. The thud echoed, silence fell inside the room. Jungkook's heartbeat roared in his ears. Without thinking, he slipped into the darker part of the hallway, pressing himself against the wall, hidden in the shadows as the door opened. Jimin stepped out slowly, running a hand through his sweat-damp hair, his breathing heavy from practice and emotion. For a moment, Jungkook thought Jimin might see him. Might look up. Might reach out. But Jimin walked past without noticing, the scent of his citrus shampoo trailing behind like a memory Jungkook could no longer hold on to. Only when Jimin's footsteps disappeared down the stairwell did Jungkook's knees finally buckle. He slid down the wall until he was sitting on the cold floor, head bowed, hands trembling in his lap. His throat tightened painfully as the reality sank in, heavy and suffocating. He tried to swallow it down, but the pressure behind his eyes broke first. A single tear escaped. Then another. He pressed the heel of his hand against his mouth to stop the sound, but a soft, broken sob slipped through anyway. The hallway swallowed it, leaving only the echo of everything he didn't understand. Jimin doesn't want to be around me, or have I been hurting him without knowing? His mind ran back through months of memories, shared jokes, late-night talks. The way Jimin would always nudge his shoulder with a soft smile, their comfort with each other, the familiarity of their closeness. Had he imagined all of it? Had he been selfish? Blind, he thought of the last 2 weeks, Jimin's tired eyes, the way he avoided lingering too long, the way he seemed to swallow words he used to say easily. Why hadn't Jungkook noticed? Footsteps approached from the far end of the hallway. Jungkook quickly wiped his face with his sleeve, but the tremor in his jaw was hard to hide. Taehyung appeared first, his eyes widening as soon as he saw Jungkook crouched on the floor. Kook? Taehyung's voice softened. Hey, what happened? Jungkook looked away, pulling his knees closer, as if protecting the fragile thing inside him that had just shattered. I heard him, Jungkook whispered, voice raw. Jimin. Talking about me. I think I'm the problem. Taehyung's expression tightened, not with anger, but with concern so deep it almost hurt to look at. What exactly did he say? Jungkook swallowed hard. The hallway air felt thick. He said he doesn't know if he can keep doing this. Especially with me. Taehyung crouched down beside him, resting a gentle hand on Jungkook's shoulder. There was a long, heavy silence. A silence filled with the hum of the lights, the fading echo of Jimin's steps, and Jungkook's uneven breaths. Kook, Taehyung finally said, you know Jimin. He carries things alone until they crush him. Whatever he said, it might not be what you think. Jungkook shook his head, a humorless, aching laugh escaping, but it sounded like he's tired of me. Taehyung sighed, rubbing Jungkook's back in slow, steady circles, something he used to do for him during their trainee days whenever Jungkook broke down from pressure. That's why you need to talk to him. Not run from this. I'm not running, Jungkook whispered. Taehyung gave him a look, gentle but knowing, then stand up. Jungkook hesitated. His legs felt like lead. His heart even heavier, but he pushed himself up, slowly, shakily. The moment he stood, he realized how small and fragile he must look, eyes red, cheeks damp, his usual confidence hollowed out. Taehyung studied him. You really care about him, don't you? The question hit deeper than Jungkook expected. He looked down at his hands. His voice came out soft, honest, unguarded, more than he knows. The hallway seemed to still around them. Taehyung's eyes softened further. Then don't let your fear make decisions for you. Before Jungkook could answer, A soft sound cut through the silence, a quiet, hesitant step from the shadowed corner near the practice room door, a presence Jungkook had felt 1,000 times in rehearsals, backstage, in the quiet moments when only heartbeats spoke. Jimin. Jungkook's breath caught. Jimin stood there, partly hidden, eyes wide, not with confusion, but with something far more painful. His expression said he had heard enough. His lips parted slightly, as if to speak, Jungkook. Jungkook's heart stuttered so sharply he felt the pain of it echo through his chest. Everything inside him, fear, longing, confusion, collided at once. He didn't know what Jimin had heard. He didn't know what Jimin would say, but the hallway felt suddenly, terrifyingly still as Jimin took one small step toward him. Jimin didn't move at first. He just stood there under the dim hallway light, breathing softly, his eyes locked onto Jungkook like he was looking at someone he no longer knew how to approach. The shadows sharpened the tension between them, turning the space into something unbearably intimate. Taehyung slowly stepped back, giving them space without a word. Jungkook barely registered it. His heart was thundering too loudly, a painful rhythm that filled his entire chest. Jimin, Jungkook whispered again, almost afraid of hearing his own voice. Jimin took a slow breath and stepped closer. The faint scent of sweat and citrus clung to him, familiar, comforting, and right now impossibly painful. "How much did you hear?" Jimin asked, his voice trembling in a way he couldn't hide. Jungkook swallowed hard. "Enough." Jimin's jaw tightened. His gaze dropped to the floor for a moment, his fingers curling into the fabric of his hoodie. "I wasn't talking about you the way you think." Jungkook let out a shaky breath. "Then what were you talking about?" "Because it sounded like I'm exhausting you." A sharp exhale left Jimin's lips. He lifted his head, eyes shining with frustration and something more complicated, fear, maybe. "Or guilt." "That's not what I meant," Jimin said. "But I didn't know how to say it in any other way." "Say what?" Jungkook stepped closer, not even realizing his feet had moved until Jimin's breath ghosted against his cheek. "Tell me, Hyung. I'm right here. Just say it." Jimin closed his eyes for a moment, as though gathering the strength to look into Jungkook's. When he opened them again, something raw flickered there. "You've changed," Jimin murmured. "Not in a bad way. Just, in a way I didn't know how to keep up with." Jungkook stiffened. "Changed how?" "You don't talk to me like you used to," Jimin said. "You don't confide in me. You look tired all the time but you tell everyone you're fine. You shut me out but expect me to always be here anyway." Jungkook's breath caught in his throat. "I never meant to shut you out." "I know you didn't," Jimin said. "But that's what's happening. And it hurts, Jungkook. It hurts more than I wanted to admit." Jungkook's hands trembled. He clenched them into fists at his sides. "You should have told me. You should have said something instead of saying you didn't know if you can do this anymore." Jimin's eyes softened with regret. "I didn't think you'd want to hear it. I thought you already had enough weight on your shoulders." "That doesn't matter," Jungkook said, voice breaking. "You matter. What you feel matters." Jimin inhaled sharply as though those words hit him somewhere vulnerable. He stepped closer until they were barely inches apart. Their breaths mingled, warm and unsteady. "For months," Jimin whispered, "I've been trying to figure out where I lost you. At first, I thought it was schedules, exhaustion, your music, but then I realized it wasn't any of that. It was fear." Jungkook's brow furrowed. "Fear of what?" "Fear of being the problem," Jimin admitted. "Fear of wanting more from you than I was supposed to. Fear of caring in ways that," his sentence faltered. His throat bobbed with a swallow. "In ways that might make things complicated." Jungkook's pulse surged. "Hyung, what do you mean?" Jimin's eyes locked onto his, unguarded for the first time in the whole conversation. "You're not the only one who's been struggling." Silence stretched between them, heavy and fragile. Jungkook felt the floor tilt beneath him, felt the hallway shrink until everything outside the small space between them disappeared. "I thought you were pulling away because you didn't want me close anymore," Jimin confessed, his voice a thin whisper. "I thought you noticed how I felt and hated it." The air fractured. "How you felt?" Jungkook whispered. A faint tremor passed through Jimin's lips, like he was seconds away from retreating behind a wall again, but Jungkook didn't let him. He stepped forward, closing the distance entirely. Their chests brushed. Their breaths collided. Jimin tensed, but didn't step back. "Tell me," Jungkook said softly. "Please." Jimin's voice cracked. "I care about you too much. More than I should. And when you stopped leaning on me, stopped looking at me the same way, I told myself it was better to step back before I made things worse." Jungkook's heartbeat hammered so loudly he could barely hear his own inhale. "Hyung." His voice was faint. Unsteady. "I wasn't pulling away because I didn't care. I was pulling away because I didn't trust myself." Jimin's breath hitched. "What are you saying?" Jungkook reached up before he could pull the gesture back, brushing his thumb tentatively across Jimin's cheek. Jimin's lashes fluttered at the touch, his breath faltering. "I've wanted to tell you everything," Jungkook whispered. "But I didn't know how to say it without losing you." "You're not losing me," Jimin said quickly, desperately. "You never were." Jungkook laughed softly, a painful, trembling sound. "Then why did it feel like I was watching you drift away every day?" Jimin's hands lifted slowly, hesitantly, until they hovered near Jungkook's hoodie. Then, with a courage that made his fingers tremble, he grabbed the fabric and pulled Jungkook closer. "You don't get to say I drifted away," Jimin said, breath unsteady. "Not when I was waiting for you." The hallway felt too small for how their emotions collided: fear, longing, frustration, affection so deep it hurt to hold back. The tension between them vibrated, alive and burning. Jungkook leaned in, forehead touching Jimin's. "I'm sorry for hurting you," he whispered. "I swear I didn't know." Jimin exhaled shakily. "I'm sorry for saying it the way I did. I never wanted you to hear it like that." Jungkook closed his eyes, focusing on Jimin's warmth, Jimin's breath, Jimin's trembling hold on him. "We're a mess," Jungkook murmured. Jimin let out a tiny, broken laugh. "Yeah. But maybe we can stop pretending." Jungkook opened his eyes. "Pretending what?" Jimin didn't answer with words. Instead, he looked at Jungkook with an expression that said far more than anything he could have spoken. Every wall they had both built over the years seemed to crack all at once. And in that dim hallway, with his heart raw and everything uncertain, Jungkook realized something devastatingly simple. He didn't want distance. He didn't want silence. He didn't want to lose the one person who could break him with a single sentence. He wanted Jimin, all of him, and Jimin, trembling but unyielding in front of him, wanted him back. The air between them seemed to vibrate, so thick with unspoken emotions that even breathing felt dangerous. Jimin still had a tight grip on Jungkook's hoodie, and Jungkook could feel every tremble in his fingers. It wasn't fear. It wasn't anger. It was something raw, something Jimin had clearly buried for longer than either of them realized. "Let go," Jungkook whispered softly. Jimin hesitated, but his hands loosened. Not because he wanted to, but because he thought he had to. Jungkook didn't move away. Instead, he reached up and gently took Jimin's wrist, guiding his hand back to the fabric of his hoodie right over Jungkook's chest. "Not like that," Jungkook said. "If you hold on to me, don't let go halfway." Jimin's breath caught in his throat. "Jungkook, don't say things like that unless you mean them." "I do." Jimin blinked, stunned. For a long moment, neither spoke. The faint hum of the hallway lights, the smell of sweat from hours of practice, the echo of distant footsteps, all of it faded beneath the weight of the moment. Jimin finally broke the silence. "You have no idea how much you've been driving me crazy." Jungkook's eyes widened. "Hyung, not like that," Jimin said quickly, though the faint flush coloring his cheeks betrayed him. "I mean, emotionally. Mentally. Every time you smiled at me like nothing was wrong, every time you acted like you didn't notice how I was falling apart. I felt like I was the only one who saw the cracks." Jungkook exhaled shakily. "You think I didn't notice you breaking? You think it didn't kill me every time you forced a smile and told everyone you were fine?" Jimin's breathing hitched. "Then why didn't you say anything? Why didn't you reach out?" "Because I didn't trust myself," Jungkook said. "Because I didn't know what parts of me were allowed." Jimin took a step back, not out of distance, but out of shock. "Allowed? Jungkook, you don't need permission to care about me." "That's the problem," Jungkook said. "I cared too much." Jimin's eyes darkened with something intense, something that made Jungkook's pulse spike. "How long?" Jimin asked quietly. "How long have you been holding it in?" Jungkook swallowed. Long enough to be terrified you'd hate me if you knew. For a second, Jimin looked like he couldn't breathe. His lips parted slightly, his eyes searching Jungkook's face for any sign of uncertainty, finding none. Jimin stepped closer again, but this time slower, more deliberate. Jungkook, look at me. Jungkook raised his eyes. Do you really think I could ever hate you? Jimin whispered. Jungkook didn't answer, because he didn't trust his voice. He didn't have to. Jimin lifted his hand, brushing his fingers against Jungkook's jaw. A light touch, barely there, yet it made Jungkook's entire body tense with the intensity of it. You're not a burden, Jimin murmured. You're not something I'm tired of. You're not someone I'm trying to escape. Jungkook felt his chest tremble. Then why did you say you couldn't keep doing this, especially with me? Jimin closed his eyes, his hand still on Jungkook's jaw. Because I didn't trust myself either. Because I didn't want my feelings to ruin everything. Because caring about you this much scared me. Jungkook's breath caught. You should have told me. I was afraid, Jimin said softly. Afraid of pushing you. Afraid of making you uncomfortable. Afraid that if I crossed one line, even a single one, you'd pull away completely. Jungkook reached up and placed his hand over Jimin's, keeping it against his face. You're the last person I would ever pull away from. Jimin's eyes opened slowly. They were shining, not with tears, but with the kind of vulnerability he tried so hard to hide from the world. Then what are we doing? Jimin whispered. What are we supposed to be? Jungkook felt something inside him crack open, quietly but completely. I don't know, he said honestly. But I know I don't want to lose whatever this is. Jimin let out a shaky exhale. I don't either. Their foreheads touched again, softly, naturally, like it had been building for years. The warmth between them was almost unbearable, a slow-burning fire that neither seemed willing to step away from. But then a voice echoed from the far end of the hallway. Have you guys seen? Hoseok froze mid-sentence. His eyes widened as he took in the scene, Jungkook and Jimin standing way too close, hands still touching, expressions too intense to pass as casual. Jungkook stepped back immediately. Jimin dropped his hand. Both of them looked guilty, like teenagers caught doing something they shouldn't, even though nothing had happened yet. Oh, Hoseok said slowly. Sorry. Did I interrupt something? No, Jimin said quickly. Yes, Jungkook said at the exact same time. They both looked at each other, startled. Jimin's face flushed. Jungkook's ears turned red. The tension snapped back into place, sharper, more electric. Hoseok blinked. Okay, whatever this is, maybe take it somewhere that isn't a public hallway. People are starting to gather backstage. Jungkook and Jimin exchanged another glance, this one filled with uncertainty, embarrassment, and something dangerously close to longing. Jungkook cleared his throat. We should talk somewhere else. Jimin nodded. Yeah, we should. Hoseok walked away, muttering under his breath something about timing and kids these days, but neither of them really heard him. Jimin looked at Jungkook again. Gentler now. Let's go to the practice room. No one will go there for a while. Okay, Jungkook said softly. As they walked side by side, close enough for their arms to brush, far enough to hold back the urge to reach for each other, Jungkook realized something unsettling. Whatever conversation waited behind that practice room door, it wasn't going to be easy, and whatever truth they were about to face, it might change everything. The practice room was dim, lit only by the soft glow from the hallway outside. Jimin entered first, leaving the door slightly ajar until Jungkook followed. Then he closed it slowly, the quiet click echoing through the empty room. The scent of sweat, wood polish, and the faint trace of their performances lingered in the air, thick with memories neither of them had dared confront until now. Jungkook leaned against the mirror, arms crossed tightly over his chest. Not in defiance, more in self-defense. Jimin stood near the center of the room, arms hanging at his sides, shoulders tense. They stared at each other like two people standing on opposite sides of a line they never meant to draw. Say it, Jimin broke the silence first. Whatever you were holding back. Whatever you couldn't tell me. Jungkook lowered his eyes. It's not that simple. It is, Jimin insisted. You said you cared too much. You said you didn't trust yourself. You said you didn't want to lose me. None of that sounds simple, but it's honest. So don't stop now. Jungkook inhaled slowly, then pushed away from the mirror and crossed the room until he stood directly in front of Jimin. Close enough that their breaths overlapped again. Close enough that the tension between them sparked like static. You want honesty? Jungkook asked softly. All of it. Jimin nodded. I wasn't pulling away because I didn't feel anything, Jungkook said. I was pulling away because I felt too much. Too fast. Too intensely. Jimin's breath hitched. Jungkook, you asked how long, Jungkook continued, voice tightening. How long I've been holding it in. The truth is, long enough for it to hurt every time you smiled at someone else. Long enough for it to feel like my chest would crack if you walked out of a room without looking back. Long enough that stopping myself from reaching for you became exhausting. Jimin was motionless, frozen in the middle of the room like someone had pulled the ground from beneath him. And the worst part, Jungkook added, is that I thought you didn't feel anything close to that. I thought it was just me. Jimin's eyes softened with a mix of shock and something dangerously tender. You idiot, he whispered. Do you know how many nights I stayed awake wondering if you even noticed me anymore? Jungkook blinked, stunned. What are you talking about? Jimin stepped forward, his voice rising not in anger, but in emotional intensity that burned hotter than any argument. You didn't see me, Jungkook. You saw the version of me you were comfortable with. The one who always smiled, who always understood, who always stayed calm even when you were falling apart. That's not fair, Jungkook shot back, frustration flaring. You never told me you were struggling. You kept everything hidden. And you think you didn't. Jimin countered, stepping even closer. You think I couldn't see you hurting? But every time I tried to ask, you brushed me off. You said I'm fine and walked away. What was I supposed to do? Push harder, Jungkook said, surprising even himself. Don't let me lie to you. Jimin's eyes widened with something like disbelief. Then hurt, you wanted me to fight you? I wanted you to care enough not to believe me, Jungkook answered, voice breaking. Because sometimes I don't know how to ask for help. Jimin's expression softened painfully. Kook. I always cared. Too much. That's the problem. Jungkook reached for him then, slowly, hesitantly resting his hands on Jimin's arms. The touch sent a jolt through both of them. Then why didn't you say something? Jungkook whispered. Because I thought if I said how I really felt, you'd think I was crossing a line, Jimin whispered back. That you'd feel pressured. Or uncomfortable. Or worse, you'd pull away completely. I never would have done that. You don't know that. I do, Jungkook insisted. Because losing you, losing even a piece of you, would destroy me. Jimin's breath faltered, and his eyes glistened. You think I don't feel the same? Then why did you say you didn't know if you could keep doing this? Jungkook asked. Why did you say my name like I was some kind of weight on your shoulders? Jimin looked away, ashamed because I was scared. Because every time I looked at you, I wanted something I thought I wasn't allowed to want. Because every time we got too close, I panicked. Jungkook's fingers tightened gently around Jimin's arms. What exactly did you want? Jimin hesitated. A long, trembling silence stretched between them. Say it, Jungkook breathed. Please. Jimin's voice was barely audible. I wanted you to need me the way I needed you. The room seemed to tilt. Jungkook stepped closer until their foreheads touched again. His breath shook as it left his lips. Jimin. I've always needed you. Jimin closed his eyes, swallowing hard. You don't know what you're saying. Yes, I do. Then why now? Jimin demanded quietly. Why only after you heard something that broke you? Why didn't you tell me before? Because I was scared too, Jungkook admitted. Because wanting you felt dangerous. Because every time you looked at me with those eyes, I felt like you could see all the parts of me I wasn't ready to admit existed. Jimin's voice softened. And now? Now I don't care how dangerous it is. Jimin's eyes opened slowly. You can't just say things like that, Jungkook. You can't just come to me with all this intensity and expect me not to break. Jungkook let out a shaky laugh. You think I'm not breaking right now? Jimin's hands rose, gripping Jungkook's hoodie again, this time with no hesitation, no fear. Then what do we do? Jungkook met his gaze steadily, tenderly. We stop running. Jimin's eyes flickered, full of emotion, pain, relief, longing, and something he had fought far too long. Slowly, their foreheads pressed together again. No one spoke. No one needed to, everything was in the way they breathed, the way their fingers tightened around each other, the way both of them shook like they'd been holding these truths for years. Jungkook whispered, barely audible, "You're not losing me, Hyung." Jimin whispered back, "And you're not losing me either." Their silence after that said more than any confession ever could. The rooftop felt quieter than it ever had, as if the night itself was holding its breath for them. The city lights flickered below, distant and indifferent, but Jungkook's heartbeat was loud, too loud, as Jimin stood in front of him, eyes softening after all the chaos they had dragged each other through. "Jungkook," Jimin whispered, "you can't keep running from what you feel, and you can't keep making me guess either." Jungkook's jaw tightened. "I wasn't running." "You were," Jimin said, stepping closer, his voice trembling with the weight of too many unspoken nights. "Maybe not with your feet, but with everything else." Jungkook swallowed hard. The moonlight caught on the frustration in his eyes, frustration at himself, at Jimin, at how badly he wanted something he'd spent years pretending wasn't there. "I didn't want to lose you," Jungkook finally said, his voice breaking. "And I thought, if I said too much, or wanted too much, you'd go." Jimin's breath left him in a shaky exhale. "If I wanted to go, Jungkook, I would have gone a long time ago." Silence stretched between them, alive, electric, thick with everything that had been spiraling out of control for far too long. Jimin reached out first, his fingers brushed Jungkook's wrist, delicate but intentional. "Look at me," he murmured. Jungkook did. And in that moment, the tension that had always hovered between them finally found a place to land. "You don't lose me by being honest," Jimin said. "You lose me by staying silent." The words hit harder than any argument, any heated moment, any jealousy that had burned through earlier episodes. Jungkook's shoulders trembled, not with fear, but with the relief of finally being understood. He took a long breath and stepped closer, closing the last sliver of space between them. "Then hear me now," he said, voice low, raw, and brutally sincere. "I don't want distance. I don't want half of you. I don't want to pretend you're just someone I work with. I want," he exhaled, "I want you." Jimin's eyes widened, but not in shock, more like recognition, like he had been waiting for those words. He lifted a hand to Jungkook's cheek, fingertips warm against skin chilled by the night wind. "Then you should have said that before nearly driving us both insane." A shaky laugh escaped Jungkook, the first real one in what felt like forever. Jimin smiled faintly, thumb brushing across Jungkook's cheekbone. "Come here." Jungkook leaned in, not in desperation this time, but in clarity. Their foreheads touched, breaths mingling, the world narrowing to the quiet warmth of that moment. "No cameras, no noise, no confusion, just them." "I'm not going anywhere," Jimin whispered. "Good," Jungkook breathed back. "Because I'm done letting you walk away." Jimin's eyes fluttered shut as Jungkook wrapped his arms around him, not the frantic, conflicted hold from previous episodes, but something steadier. Something that felt like a promise, and Jimin sank into it completely. For the first time, neither of them pulled back. The rooftop wind swept around them like a closing curtain. Down below, the city continued moving, but up here, the story had finally found its ending, quiet but powerful, fragile but real. A confession made. A fear released. A bond repaired. And the unspoken truth between them, after so many episodes of tension and chaos, finally settled into place. They had chosen each other, and this time, they weren't letting go.